All right, he was the winner of the second ever Fantasy Phenom competition, and he is now a daily talk show host on WFAN Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM in New York City. I had the opportunity to work with him when I was an intern at WFAN, so I'm honored to welcome John Jastremski onto the show today. John, how you doing, buddy?
What's happening, Matty? Happy to be aboard, bro. Good to hear from you.
Really appreciate it. All right, so let's get right into it. We're about a week and a half into the season. Anything standing out to you so far in terms of Major League Baseball?
Well, I think when you look at the two New York baseball locals, you look at the Yankees over their first week and a half or so, and the big question you had going into this season, were the Yankees going to be able to replace the offense that's going to be missing here in the early going? No Mark Teixeira on the disabled list, Granderson on the disabled list, Jeter not going to be back until May. We know the old Alex Rodriguez fiasco, and then a couple of guys who depart via free agency, Swisher, Martin, Chavez, Ibanez, what have you. How the Yankees will be able to replace that offense, and I know it's a small sample size, I know it's early, but so far so good. I mean, the Yankees have gotten great production out of Euclid. I think he's going to be a very good player for them. I think you look at Hafner and Wells, and more so Hafner, it's the ability of just staying on the baseball field, but I think they may have found a real nice find here with Vernon Wells, and if the Yankee pitching is able to hold up, and if the Yankee pitching is able to produce, the Yankees will be fine, and they will be in contention throughout the rest of the season. Now, as far as the Mets are concerned, you know that Neese is going to be a very solid starter. I think it's apparent that Harvey's going to be a star for years to come. But, I mean, you look 3 through 5 right now in this Mets rotation. Without Markham, without Wheeler being down in the minor leagues, the Mets rotation isn't very good, and the Mets don't have the horses offensively. And if you're a Mets fan, look, I know Buck's been a nice surprise. I know you look at this Mets lineup, and there are a couple of guys that you can look at and smile and say, all right, they're a piece moving forward. But all in all, if you're a Mets fan, realistically, you knew going into this season it was going to be a long year.
All right, I love your assessment on the Mets, but just going back to the Yankees, because obviously they're going to be the more intriguing, when it comes to like postseason. How do you see the AL East playing out?
Well, I'll be honest, Matty. You look at this division, and it was hyped up going into the season. To me, it is very, very even, 1 through 5. I said it at the get-go, that you could make a case for every team in the American League East to win the division, and you could probably make the case for every single one of these teams to finish in last place. And I think right now, you look at the struggles of the Toronto Blue Jays. Everyone hyped up the Blue Jays much like they did the Miami Marlins a year ago. And I look at that Blue Jays team, and there are some legitimate concerns. I mean, Josh Johnson's been absolutely awful. R.A. Dickey is not resembling the R.A. Dickey that we saw a year ago when he was the best pitcher in the National League for the New York Mets. And I think it's going to be an adjustment and a transition period for him to really get used to the American League East. And the Blue Jays, who knows if Jose Reyes is going to be able to play the whole year. I think you look at this division, I think it's going to be wide open. I think it's the first to 90 gets the American League East. And I think it's going to be one of those divisions where you look at it and everybody is in contention and everybody is in the mix come the middle of August. And I think it's going to make for a really, really fun pennant race. And I'll say this, I don't know for sure if you were going to have a team out of this division get a wild card spot. Why? Because you look at the AL West. The Astros are an absolute joke. The Mariners are a bottom feeder type team. So I think the A's, the Angels, and the Rangers here can feast off those teams in the division, and that's bad news for the teams in the American League East.
Definitely, definitely. Now, because I respect your baseball opinion so much, I'm going to put you on the spot right now. And like I said, it's way early, but the John Jastremski World Series pick here on April 10th, or sorry, April 11th, what is it if you got a gun to your head right now?
Well, I'll stick with the one I had preseason. I mean, I'm not going to be changing my tune this quickly here into the early going. I think the Detroit Tigers will win the entire thing. I mean, you look at that Tigers team, I know that there are some current concerns about their bullpen, specifically their closer right now is Joaquin Benoit. Who knows what's going to be the case come the middle of the year. But, I mean, look at that Tigers team. They got to the World Series a year ago. They had Victor Martinez, who comes back from the injury. They had Torrey Hunter back into their lineup from the Angels. And the lineup with Cabrera, with Fielder, Martinez, Hunter, Austin, Jackson, I mean, it is absolutely loaded. And the rotation features Verlander, who's the best pitcher in baseball. Scherzer, who to me has dominant front-end stuff. Fister. I mean, that's a great 1-2-3. When Anibal Sanchez, as you know before, that Tigers team's loaded. They play in a weak division. I think they're built for the postseason. They're going to get into the postseason. I have them coming out of the AL. Now, the NL, to me, is a lot more tricky. because I know everyone's on the Nationals bandwagon, and rightfully so. They got some front-end young talent. But I'm going to give you a team going back a couple of weeks ago. I know they haven't gotten off to a great start, but they always seem to be lingering here in the NL. I'm going to go with the St. Louis Cardinals. They got a nice lineup. I think Wainwright's going to have a big-time year. I'll go with the Tigers and the Cardinals just to be a little different, because I know everybody's throwing you the Nationals and the Dodgers, so I'll give you a different tune there, and I'll say the Cardinals in the NL.
No, I like it. Those are two teams who have been consistent over the last couple of years, and you know they're always going to be competitive. They're always going to be there, so I definitely like your assessment on that. All right, let's switch gears and move on to the NBA. How about our New York Knicks? Are they a real threat in the East, a real threat to the Miami Heat? What do you think?
I think they're a threat to get to an Eastern Conference final. I don't think anybody at the Eastern Conference or the Western Conference. That includes the Oklahoma City Thunder. That includes the San Antonio Spurs. I don't think anybody right now can beat the Miami Heat 4 out of 7 times. Now, if that's the case and I'm wrong, I'd be more than happy to be wrong. I mean, I'm sick of the Heat, for goodness sakes. But I think the Knicks have their best team in a real long time. I think they're a team that's clearly going to be a threat in the postseason. I think you'd be absolutely distraught if this team lost in the first round. And I even think you'd be a little disappointed if they lost the second-round series, let's say, to the Indiana Pacers. And with the way Carmelo Anthony is playing, with the way the Knicks are playing on the defensive end, and I think getting Chandler and Martin 100% healthy or close to it for the playoffs is going to be an enormous key with the toughness that they can provide. But I think you're looking at a Knicks team that's playing deep into the month of May and the early part of June. That's a good thing. That's a long time coming if you're a fan of the Knicks.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. I agree 100%. Like, that is I think for the Knicks fan, like you and I and all the rest of us, getting to the Eastern Conference Finals is really as much as we can hope for. Maybe, who knows, we can get Miami to a Game 6. I think that's as realistic as it can get. So I definitely agree there. I definitely agree that Miami is going to, eventually, win their second championship in a row. Going out west, who do you think would meet them in the NBA Finals?
The West is real tough. I mean, everybody seems to think Oklahoma City's going to get back. I disagree. Take Harden out off that roster. I don't think Oklahoma City is going to be able to execute as flawlessly as they did offensively in the Western Final against San Antonio. Now, San Antonio getting to a Western Final is no short thing, especially if they have to go through the Memphis Grizzlies. Because the Memphis Grizzlies, you remember a couple of years ago, they were an 8 seed, they didn't have Rudy Gay, and they knocked off the Spurs in 6 games. It's just a tough matchup because of their size with Randolph and Gasol. I am going to say San Antonio gets to the NBA Finals. I know they're old. I know they have not been able to get to an NBA Finals. You got to go all the way back to the 2006-2007 season. But I think Popovich is going to do enough. I think they're going to be able to get by the young guns of the Denver Nuggets, assuming they stay in the number 2 seed. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you are not looking at Oklahoma City and San Antonio in a West Final. I have a funny feeling that Memphis or the Clippers, whoever survives that first-round series, I think either one could get to a West Final. And I actually think you're better off, Matty, being the 2 seed in the West, because no knock on Denver, tough place to play, tough style. George Karl's done a marvelous job. But if I'm a team out West, I would much rather play the Denver Nuggets than either Memphis or the Clippers, gun to my head, just because I think that their style of play is much more conducive for the regular season than it is the postseason.
This is why I love you, John, because I've been preaching on this show for the last couple of weeks that I like the Spurs out of the West, and I've been taking a lot of heat from my co-host, so I definitely appreciate that, and I love your assessment of the Western Conference. All right, lastly, the story that never ends, Darrelle Revis. What do you think should happen, and what do you think will happen?
Well, he's going to get traded. I actually think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. The question is, when will Darrelle Revis get traded, not if Darrelle Revis will get traded. I actually think it would be somewhat of an upset here if Darrelle Revis is on this Jets roster come opening day in September. I think it'd be even a bigger upset if Darrelle Revis signs a long-term deal with the Jets. Not that Darrelle Revis doesn't want to stay, but the Jets are clearly looking to rebuild this roster from top to bottom. Now, here's the thing that blows my mind. You bring back Rex Ryan after what was a disastrous year, 6-10. You fire Mike Tannenbaum. But what kind of message are you sending Rex Ryan if you're going to trade the best defensive player on this team, arguably one of the best defensive players in the entire National Football League, when this guy's a defensive coach? To me, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. That's why bringing back Rex Ryan for this 1-year stint I just think you're putting him in a position to flop right on his face, and then Izzy can go out there and hire whoever he wants as the head coach, which who knows if that's going to be the case anyway. Now, if I'm the Jets, is it the right move to trade Darrelle Revis? Depends on what you get. If you get 2 first-round picks and you're really looking to rebuild the organization, that's all well and good. But then my question to you would be, why are you bringing back this head coach? Because you're simply just wasting a year in the rebuilding process. It's a tough predicament for the Jet fan because Revis is a big-time talent. He's one of the best players in the history of the franchise. And that's why you're almost stuck between a rock and a hard place trying to get rid of this guy because, let's face it, he's one of the better players you've ever seen in the Jets uniform. But as far as the long-term prognostication of this franchise, the long-term development, it is probably within their realm to make this move, especially when you get 2 first-round picks.
What about this? I don't think they're going to get 2 first-round picks. What about a first and a third from Tampa Bay?
A first and a third, I mean, it's probably the best you're going to get. And if that 2 first-round picks would probably be your asking price, or maybe even a first and a second. A first and a third, look, I think it's fair value. You get the first. I would actually rather have the first-round pick in the 2014 NFL draft.
Agreed.
Because there are some quarterbacks that are going to be in the draft. I'm not enamored with this quarterback class, and we all know full well Jets need a quarterback in the worst way because Mark Sanchez is just not the answer at that position moving forward. So I would rather have that pick coming up in next year's draft. But if it's in this year's draft, you got to look to bring in playmakers one way or another. Now, are those guys ever going to be Darrelle Revis? No, probably not. But then you face the predicament if you're not going to re-sign them, you better do whatever it is in your power to get something back to this guy.
Yeah, wouldn't that just be throwing more dirt on Rex Ryan's grave? Get a 2014 first-round pick for Darrelle Revis, so he literally would get nothing this season. But I agree about what you said about Revis. Definitely agree about Rex Ryan. It makes no sense why they're bringing him back. I mean, I've never seen a coach in such a lame duck situation. But, yeah, definitely agree with your assessment there. And I really appreciate you coming on the show today. You know, I miss you guys over at WFAN. Maybe a miracle happens, and I'm graduating in a couple weeks. Maybe you'll see me back up there. That'd be awesome.
Certainly hope so, Matty. Pleasure's all mine, brother. Enjoy the next couple of weeks, all right, dude?
All right, man. You take care. Great talking to you.
All right, Matty. Take care.